In this series, I'm going to teach you how to make an awesome, dynamic, good-looking main menu like you see in my game Contrastelle and in other games like No Man's Sky and Destiny. In this first video, we're going to focus on just having smooth transitions between submenus like you see here that move smoothly between one menu to another. To do that, we're going to create a main menu that looks just like this and that lets you move back and forth between menu options, smoothly transitioning between them the whole time. Let's get started. So here's a demo scene that we're going to be using to help make this happen. You'll notice here I've got a canvas layer, so this is just going to be our main menu canvas layer. I like to have all my menus instantiated with a canvas layer at the top, just so in case you do end up putting them over your game, it's easy to make them appear on top of the screen while your game might be running in the background, but that's not super important. What is important is you'll notice that I don't have a container as the root of my menus. I've actually got this menu root, which is just a simple control node. The reason we want to do that is because Godot's layout system is incredibly powerful and it's really, really good for making layouts. It's not very flexible though, and so the nicety of making really good layouts comes at the expense of being able to move things around easily. Your rect position, size, and scale are really determined by your container, and it's hard to adjust those from code. So what we're going to do is combine the best of both worlds. We're going to make individual menu elements that use Godot's powerful layout system, but we're going to keep our top level menu elements themselves not bound by specific containers, so we can move this menu root around and give it this nice dynamic feel while not having to worry about making the layout of our entire menu system itself. So the first thing we're going to do to that point is you'll notice that this menu root, I've set the layout to be full rect. This means it'll take up the entirety of the screen, whatever that is. And I've got two menus, so we're going to practice transitioning left and right like we saw in that intro clip. So this first menu is going to be our main menu, and the second menu will be, sort of a secondary menu that we'll have. So I'm going to set these both to be full rectangle. We'll do that here, and then do this here. This is just saying, hey, take up the full width of our menu root. But you'll notice I can still set these properties themselves. I can move this around. We are not being bound by a container because our menu root is not a container. So we are still able to manually determine our location and properties. And so what I'm going to do is look at the size of our viewport. Basically, we've got a 1024 by 600 viewport. What I'm going to do is move our second menu to be that much over to the right. So we're going to do 1024. And so now we've got the second menu that will be off screen. It'll be off our camera. You can see the little camera blue thing over there. Let me fix that. That's weird. So we're going to move this off screen, and what's going to happen is our menu root is going to have a script that's going to determine, it's going to slide this smoothly over into our main menu's position while sliding our main menu to the left. So we're going to get this nice effect of being able to control our menu positions directly while also being able to let Godot do all the work of laying out our menu for us. One other thing to note is that this is going to involve some hard coding of size values, but this is generally okay because once you pick a project resolution, you're generally not going to change it. So we have a width and height of our game of 1024 by 600. Another thing we can do is use the stretch mode of 2D and the aspect of keep, so we can make sure that this isn't going to change as our game is resized. It's going to keep the same aspect, and so these values are going to be constant in whatever type of resolution or window our user is using. So now that we've got that, we can start adding these scripts. Okay, so I've gone through and added just some basic labels and buttons here just so that we have something to work with. So I've got, like we said before, we've got our menu one, which is our main menu. I just added a center container with a VBox container to kind of stack these buttons here. And I added a title and just some tool buttons, which are buttons that just don't have any styling to them because we just to keep it simple. So we've got these three buttons, and all we're going to do is work with option one. And when we click option one, it's going to bring us to the second menu, which I just added just to have some variety, just a regular VBox container, no setter container, just some labels, nothing there, and then a back button that we'll be able to use to go back to the main menu. So now that we've got both of our menus and they have some content that we can see, let's actually add a script to our menu root here, and we'll start getting the animation going. Okay, so I'm going to come to our menu root. I'm just going to add a script here. We'll just call it menu root for now. And we're going to need to start adding some things in. So first, let's talk about the variables we're going to need. we need to keep track of this origin here, where our currently visible menu needs to be, and the current menu size. And so we're going to keep track of that. And we're also going to have a method of keeping track of where we are in our menu stack. So say there's a button, you have like 10 menus that each lead to each other, and you're all the way over here. You want to be able to keep track of the order that you've moved across your menus. And so we're going to use a stack for that. So a couple things that we'll need, we'll say var menu origin position. And this is going to be a vector2, and we'll just default all these to vector2.0. And then we're going to make another one of these, except instead of origin position, we're going to say origin size. So these are going to keep track of our menu's position and size. And again, this is going to pretty much look like what your window size is, but this allows for some flexibility for resizing. If you're not keeping the aspect, you can update these whenever your menu resizes. So there's some room there to do different things. And then we're going to say var current menu. This is just going to keep track of which menu is currently visible, and then var menu stack. And this is just going to be an array of an array that's going to hold our stack of menus. Godot doesn't have a built-in stack data type, but we can pretty much make our own just by using an array. So now we also need to get references to our different menus. We only have two, so we're going to say menu 1, and this is going to be menu 1, and we're going to just copy and paste this, and we're going to do menu 2 and do the same thing here. So now we've got references to both of our menus. We're able to move back and forth between them. So let's start adding some of this code. The first thing we need to do is in our ready function, we're just going to replace this basic one here, and we're going to say menu origin position, and this is going to be vector2 of 0, 0. Now we could be a little bit better about that, and we could actually get this value by calling in our menu 1 or knowing what our default menu is, but we know that it's going to always start at 0, 0. We've intentionally done that. So we can say also menu origin size is also going to be a vector2, and we're going to say this is rect.size. We're going to get our viewport rect here. So get viewport rect, and this is going to get the size of our viewport, the size of our screen. So again, there's some room here. This is going to help us work with resizable. If your game is not keeping the same aspect or is able to be resized, you'd want to call this and reset your menu origin size whenever your node gets resized. There's a resized signal on nodes, so you might want to use that, but we won't handle that in this video. So it's going to be get viewport rect.size. The last thing we need to do here is just set current menu to our menu 1. So we're going to set our current menu to be menu 1, which is great. So now we need to add in some functionality to move between menus. So what we're going to do is just say function move to next menu, and we'll change that more in a second. And we'll have another one called function move to previous menu, just like that. And so we're going to use these two to kind of connect our buttons going forward or going back, and we're going to pass in to these a menu ID, and this is going to be a string. So we'll say next menu ID, and this is going to be a string because we want to use this same move to next menu function for any of our menus. We want it to be dynamic. So this is going to allow any menu to move to another one by doing this, and we'll just add it to our stack. For our move to previous menu, we don't actually need it right now because we're just going to go back in the stack. We've already got that data. Okay. So let's start getting our next menu. First, we're going to need a way to actually convert from this menu ID, this string, to our actual menu object. So we're going to add one more function. This is going to be get menu from menu ID. And this is going to take a menu ID, which will be a string. Whoops, not string. And this is going to return an object. We won't actually give it a return type right now. We'll give it a control because they're all some form of control here. So we're just going to use a match statement, which is like a switch and case statement in other languages. So we'll say match menu ID. And then we're just going to pretty much look at what we're doing here is we're going to give easy to read names to our menus. So we'll say menu 1. And this is just going to return menu 1. And then we'll do the same thing for menu 2. This is going to return menu 2. And then we'll have a default here, just because we need it. We'll return menu 1. Okay, so now we've got a way to convert from these strings that we'll assign and make it. This is just an easy way so that when you're designing a new menu, you can just give a string rather than having to worry about trying to get a different menu from somewhere else. The purpose of doing this is that each individual menu does not have to know where the other menus are in the scene tree. All it knows is there's an ID it's supposed to go to. And so it kind of decouples your code from each other. Each menu doesn't really have to know about the other, which is nice. So now that we've got this get menu from menu ID function, let's start implementing our move to next menu. So we're going to say var next menu here, and this is going to be get menu from menu ID, and we'll pass in next menu ID. So we're going to get the actual menu object, one of these, from our our next menu ID. And then we're going to do two things. We're going to say current menu dot rect position. So this is our rect global position, excuse me. So what we're going to do is we're going to move our rectangle, our current menu's rect, one screen size to the left, and move our new menu one screen size to the left also, which is going to put it in the middle of the screen. So we're going to say our rect global position here is going to be equal to, and this is our current menu, so we want this to be the left. So this is going to be equal to negative menu origin size.x and then 0. So we want to take the size of our menu and move it left. Move our menu all the way to the left that amount. So move it totally left. We're not changing its Y because we'll just keep it in line. And then we're going to do this with our next menu. We'll say next menu dot rect global position. And we're going to set this equal to vector2 of menu origin position. Or sorry, not vector2. We'll just say menu origin position since it is a vector2. So now whenever we click on this next, we click on this to move to a next menu, we're going to move our current menu to the left and move our next menu into the viewport. And this is going to work great. The problem is that it's going to be an instant transition, so it's not going to look great, but we will address that in a second. The last thing we need to do with this too is say menu stack dot append. And so we're going to add onto our menu stack our current menu. So this is saying, and remember, we haven't changed our current menu to be our next menu yet. So we're adding the menu we just moved out of sight to our menu stack, so we know where we've come from. We're adding it to our array here, and then we can say current menu equals next menu. And so our stack now is a reference to our previous menu, even though our current menu is now the menu we have on screen. And so with this in mind, we can now actually go and start implementing our move to previous menu. So we're going to say var previous menu. And here we're going to grab this off of our menu stack. So menu stack dot pop back. And so we want to make sure we're actually, we haven't messed up how we've set up our menu. We want to make sure there's actually a menu that we've been before now. So we want to say if previous menu does not equal null. So if there's an actual menu to navigate to, we are going to say pretty much what we've done up here. We're going to say previous menu dot rect global position. We can actually really just copy these, but we're going to move our previous menu to be menu origin position, and we're going to move our current menu to be that rect global position, and we're going to move our current menu to be this same up here. Except instead of negative, because we want to move our current menu to the right, we are going to move it menu origin size.x all the way to the right. And then the only other thing we need to do here is say current menu equals previous menu. And this pop back function here removes it from the array as well, so we don't have to worry about that. So this is going to handle pretty much everything we need just to get basic movement between menus. I'll get rid of that placeholder comment there. I'll also get rid of this process function. The only other thing we need to do is actually hook up our buttons. So if I come back to our menu root, we can grab our option 1 button. I can just connect the press signal here. We'll connect to our menu root. And I'm also going to connect on our menu 2, our back button, connect the press signal here. And what we can do is just on both of these call the functions that we just made. So we can do move to next menu, and we'll just say menu 2 is our ID, because remember we're trying to match this up here. And when the back button is pressed, we can say move to previous menu, and that's all we really need to do. So now if I select our scene here and I'm going to hit Command R to run this, we'll see that we have this menu here. And if I click on option 1, all of a sudden we are on our second menu. And if I click on the back button, we're back on the main menu. So this is great. It's a super easy way to transition between menus, but now we're going to actually add animation to make it look a whole lot better. So there are two primary ways that you can do transitions in Godot. You can use an animation player and you can use a tween. The problem with the way we're doing this is that because our positions are not set in stone, it's going to be easier to use a tween than an animation player, because with an animation player, it's much harder or impossible at times to use dynamic values. You usually are hard coding property values. So what I'm going to do is add to our canvas layer here a tween node. And then what we're going to do is within our menu root, we are going to grab that. Actually, I think it's a child of our menu root, which is totally fine. So I'll say onReady var tween, and this is going to be tween. Whoops, I have to capitalize that, tween. And I guess it's not a child of our menu root, so we'll just make it child. There we go. And so now we've got a tween. And what we can do now is use our tween to move between these positions. So rather than just setting these positions and hard coding them, we can actually interpolate between these properties. So what we're going to actually do is replace these calls with a tween.interpolate property call. And what this does is it takes a property and you give it a starting and an end, and it will interpolate smoothly between those two. So we're going to do two calls to this, one from our current menu and one for our next menu. Now, before we get into this, we also need to determine how long it should take for a menu to transition from one to another. So I'm going to add another thing here, or another variable. We'll call this menu transition time. And this will be a float, and we'll set it to half a second, so 0.5. So this is going to be the time it takes for our tween to move menus back and forth, and you can adjust it as needed for your game. So the first thing we're going to do is replace our current menu. We're setting this to be to the left. So we need to slide our current menu to the left. So if you look at the properties here, we need to tell it which object it's acting on, which is our current menu. Then we need to give it the property, which is going to be rect global position. And this is a node path or a string you can use here. And then we need to give it an initial value, which is just going to be current menu dot rect global position. So we're going to go from its current position, and then our next value is going to be what we have up here, this menu, this vector2 of negative menu origin size dot x. And so it's going to go to the left that way. And then the final properties we need to give it here are a duration. It's kind of hard to see here, but this one is a duration. So we'll say menu transition time. And then you can specify and pass in different easing functions after this, but these are optional parameters. We don't actually need to do it. So this is going to be good enough for us. So now that we've got this, let's make a new line. And this is going to be, I just copied and pasted it. And this is going to be moving our next menu to the current menu area, to the viewport, to what's visible to the player. So we're going to start from next menu dot rect global position. And this is where we're going to move it to be vector2 of 0, 0, because we want it to be centered right, or sorry, not 0, 0, menu origin position, which is 0, 0 in this case. But again, we want to just be a little bit flexible and allow that this might be different at a different time. So menu origin position. So now we've got these two tweens here and they're good to go. The only thing we need to do is actually start them. So we need to do tween.start. And now we're going to have a nice animation. Oh, and I need to get rid of these two lines. So get rid of lines 25 and 26 here. So we're only moving via the tween. And now we've got this nice animation that's going to slide our current menu to the left and slide the next menu into view at the same time. And it's going to look really good. We can also do the same thing with our move to previous menu. So instead of doing these two hard-coded positions here, we can kind of copy these three lines up here, and we'll adjust as needed. Whoops. Okay, so here we want to move our previous menu and current menu. So we're moving both these. It's both rect global position, but our previous menu is going to be menu origin position. So we'll set that as our destination here. We'll keep the same menu transition time. And so previous menu, and we need to make sure that this is also previous menu. So we're moving our previous menu from its current position to the menu origin position, and then we're moving our current menu to, instead of negative menu origin size.x, to positive menu origin size.x. So we're moving it to the right. So I'll copy that in there, and this needs to be current menu. Okay, and so now we've got nice tweens that are going to animate nicely for both going to the next menu and to the previous one. The only thing we need to do is make sure we take off lines 35 and 36 so that we can actually see it in action. So now I'll select our menu root, hit Command R or Control R to run it, and we'll see. So I hit Option 1, smoothly move to the right, and I hit the back button, smoothly move to the left. So there you go. We've got this nice transitioning menu animation, and you can do some stuff like adding some vertical movement. You can make it go slower, faster. You could even not make this go totally off the screen. You can make it move a little bit to the left and have them both be visible on the screen at the same time. There's a ton of options that you can do with this. It's really flexible, but see how we've gotten the nice benefit of we're able to get this smooth transition animation by using this menu root that's a control node, but we're also letting Godot handle making the layout of our menu itself. So we've got these nicely laid out buttons and labels and elements, and we can make these really nice menus that look good, but also handle moving between them with ease. So here's what we have, everyone. We've got an awesome looking menu that you can move back and forth between different sub menus with ease. It looks good and it's nice. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this video has been helpful. If it has, a like and subscribe to support the channel are always appreciated. We'd love to have you in our Discord server, and if you have any questions, you can ask them there. The link to that is in the description. And if you find my work helpful, donating or buying a coffee on Buy Me a Coffee are always appreciated and help me to continue making great free tutorials and content for Godot. Thanks so much, everyone. See you in the next video.